The Ukrainian project Between Two Iberias, in its trip over northern Spain and Portugal, strives to unite the historical linguistics scientific interest with curiosity about the cultural, gastronomic or any other traditions. We have already visited the Basque Country and Cantabria. Now it's time to go to Asturias. The land is obliged with its greatness to the fact that it's the only part of Spain that didn't surrender to the Arabs. This is where the famous Reconquista started. Meanwhile, the Asturian undescribable natural beauty is the reason why the country obtained a nickname Paraíso Natural, which is natural paradise. It's not a secret that many Spaniards prefer spending their vacations in Asturias rather than the south. Since we enter Asturias not along the coastline but from the Cantabrian valley of Liébana, we immediately find ourselves in the beautiful natural national park Picos de Europa. Next to it, there is the most emblematic Asturian municipality, known all over the world and named Cabrales. As a matter of fact, the same name, Cabrales, is borne by the local cheese, which is proclaimed by the Spanish people as national cheese #1 in many ratings. It's a mold cheese, also known as blue cheese, so it's also considered by many the best blue cheese in the world. The Picos de Europa mountain range may be named the world's center of the mold cheeses. Beside Cabrales, you can find here also the cheese Tres Viso from the Cantabrian side. Meanwhile, in the south, next to Castilla y León, they produce the highly valuable cheese Valdeón. The reason for such a popularity of the blue cheeses is in the unique local mountain caves where the cheese is kept. They are simply overwhelmed with the most quality natural mold, penicillin.
Por eso este queso, bueno, pues tiene esas características porque tú hoy haces 10 quesos.
Out of 10 cheeses, you are not going to have two identical.
Es todo igual, todo claro, pero este tiene altiba.
Some will be spicier, some will be creamier, some will have more mold.
Cabral, es de cabra proveniencia de este.
But the name Cabrales comes from cabra, which is goat. Yes, but mostly our cheese is made out of cow milk.
Es de cabra.
So, when people first appeared in these caves, they had no idea about the mold, right? It was discovery for them. Yes, first people even didn't have houses. They hid in caves. But with the course of time, they found out that caves produced a very specific but wonderful cheese. You were lucky to have such a good mold here. Yes, very lucky. To go up there you need stairs, but it's not a real cheese, it's for museum. The real one is kept in another place. Cabrales matches best with the sweet wines like port. When you're in Portugal, try that combination. Besides, we often eat Cabrales with apple or quince jam, like marmalade. The rennet extract that we use to make cheese is animal. They get it from the young goat's stomach. For how long is the cheese kept to mature? Minimum 2 months, on average between 3 and 5 months, depending on a cave. This cave is located 200–240 meters above the sea. But if we get higher, like 1500 meters, the process of fermentation sure will take more time there, since the temperature is lower. The consistency in general depends upon the taste, but mostly it's creamy. The preferred period of maturing, 8 months. The north of Spain is one of the most crowded routes of Christian pilgrimage. The main goal, Santiago de Compostela in Galicia. But on the way the pilgrims pass many other important and sacred places too. One of them is Asturian Covadonga, a very popular tourist attraction where we will make a brief historical digression. As we know, the only region that Arabs were not able to conquer were Asturias, although the Arab troops reached as far as Gijón. That's where the legendary king Pelayo started what is known in the Spanish history as Reconquista, which is reconquering. But the first thing to keep in mind is that the Conquista was rather Berber than Arabic, and second, Pelayo was a West Goth, which is a totally alien to Iberia figure. And that's the moment when our project Between Two Iberias steps in, making what for some reason hasn't been made in millennia. We find the word Berber in the Basque, which is ancient Iberian, dictionary in the meaning of exactly the same. In other words, Iberians, in particular Basques and Berbers, were not just relatives but totally identical nations. Only this find alone puts the Spanish history head over heels. The Arabic Conquista turns into Reconquista, which is retaking of Iberia from Romans and West Goths, while Reconquista turns into Re-Reconquista, which is the second conquering of Iberia by the new nation, which soon would become known as Spanish. Don Pelayo, during those stormy events, used to hide in a magnificent in its beauty and magnetism cave with waterfalls. That's where he met a hermit who worshipped the Virgin. In any case, the cave became a symbol of Christian struggle against the Muslims, while Santa Maria de Covadonga turned into the local sacred and traditional figure. In the cave there functions a church. Also it's a place of King Pelayo's tomb. Next to the cave there is a Basilica de Santa Maria la Real de Covadonga, conceived by Roberto Frassinelli in the second half of the 19th century. So it's a modern building, although beautiful. But this is not a full story about the place called Covadonga. At the cave site you'll have to get off your car and ride the bus for half an hour straight to the clouds. This is one of the most picturesque parts of Picos de Europa Park, known as Lagos de Covadonga, which is Covadonga Lakes. They are located at a height of just under 1,200 meters, which is not little for Picos de Europa, and in good weather the sights take your breath away. It's hard to believe, but from 1983 the lakes have been the finish point of one of the stages of the Spanish cycling race Vuelta. In particular, the famous French Laurent Jalabert won it twice. The day comes to its end in a small but proud town of Cangas de Onís. Proud because in the times of Don Pelayo it used to be a capital for the Asturian kingdom. The sightseeing is mainly done around the Roman bridge. It's Roman in quote marks because it was built by Alfonso XI in the 14th century. Having closely got acquainted with the heart of Asturian lands, the complex of natural and historical monuments known as Covadonga, we pass on to study the Asturian coastline. The first place to stumble upon is Llanes. Some would find it attractive enough to spend here whole summer, not looking for anything else. But that's only if you have no idea what awaits for you ahead. Nevertheless, Llanes has anything you might ever wish in the Spanish north. Architectural monuments, a bunch of superb restaurants with the trademark Asturian cuisine, mostly seafood, and also the best Asturian products in the local shops. That's where we start filling our Asturian food basket for our corresponding rubric. From Llanes we make a spurt to arguably the most astonishing beach in the world. It's Gulpiuri. The beach seems to be somewhat lost, that turned the wrong direction. It's on the ocean coast, but facing inside, not to the sea. Hopefully we can understand this nature's puzzle better from above. The whole Asturian coast, and even the whole North Spanish coast, is a chain of fantastic beaches alternated with impressive rocks. The eastern Asturias is not an exception. Beside the world-famous Gulpiuri, you'll find here less known but still beautiful San Antolin and especially Torimbia beaches. This is where you are going to stay a bit of your time more, because the beach itself from one side and the trademark Asturian landscapes from another side magnetize you and don't let you go. The next site worth settling without thinking for the rest of your life is unforgettable Ribadeo, or Ribasella as it's called by the Asturians themselves. The routine medieval stuff which any traveler over these lands quickly gets accustomed to is combined here with the natural beauty of the Sella River Delta with marvelous beaches all over. The town has several beaches, but the best one is where the river joins the ocean. One of Ribadeo's symbols is the famous Asturian cider, but we'll tell about it a bit later. The last and the best adornment of the eastern Asturias, from Cantabria to Gijón, seems to be the town of Llanes. The town obtained the status of cultural interest. Situated on a steep hill, it gives you the best sights both on the sea and on the neighboring Sierra del Sueve. Meanwhile, its steep streets will never satiate you.
Very important information. The name of this Asturian town is known all over Spain as Lastres, and it's spelled with one L. But there is an alternative variant which is spelled through double L, and according to the rules of the Spanish phonetics it should be pronounced as Llanes. And actually that's the way it sounds here when it is pronounced by the local dwellers. The alternation between L and Y is known to us from the only source, from the only world's language, which is Megrelian. So the existence of this pair, Lastres, Llanes, here in Asturias is the clear and undoubted confirmation of the fact that this land used to be Megrelian speaking, which is Spain.
If you turn inland right before Gijón, there will be a good reason for the promised story about the world-famous Asturian cider. Unlike its Basque brother, it's gassier. Finally, the cider bottle is more expensive than the wine one, since it's supposed to resist a bigger gas pressure. The capital of Asturian cider is the town of Villaviciosa. The Spanish historians are sure that the cider was known in Asturias from the pre-Roman times. Traditionally, the production process implies that apples are either smashed with wooden hammers or pressed. In the modern industrial production, like the one in the Cortina enterprise, more scientific methods like biochemistry are used. The cidrerias, where you can taste the most authentic Asturian cider, are all over Villaviciosa. The process of specific pouring of cider into glasses is called escanciar, while the person that does it very artistically is called escanciador. In Villaviciosa we need to satisfy one more of our hungers, this time purely gastronomic. One of the most exquisite Asturian dishes is called cabracho. That's what we are going to eat at the restaurant named Campomanes. Actually, cabracho is the red scorpion fish, a fish with poisonous needles, while the dish is a pâté made out of it. In Asturias, the dish has an alternative name of tinyosu, and the main enthusiast of the cabracho pâté is the already known to you, our Basque friend Juan Marie Arzac. The dish is washed down with nothing else but cider, because we are in Villaviciosa, just to remind. If Villaviciosa is the center of Asturian cider's production, the neighboring magnificent Oviedo is the center of its consumption. In the very center of the city there is even a boulevard of cider, where it flows freely right on the streets. The escanciadors pour it, often missing the glass and showing absolutely no regret about it. Oviedo itself, where in 812 Alfonso II transferred the capital of the Asturian kingdom, is one of the most beautiful and important cities of Spain. The capital spirit is still felt here, millenniums after those events. Let's stay in the city for a while, because we need to present to the world the story of Oviedo's name origin. It has been a matter of debates for centuries. Now it's time for debates to cease. As you should know, the Between Two Iberias project insists that any world's toponym of vague origin obtains a transparent etymology once looked at from the height of the Kartvelian, which is Georgian, language family. In case of Oviedo, the initial form was Ovetum, which is mentioned in the ancient sources and confirmed by the name of the Oviedo dwellers, Ovetense. In its turn, if we strip Ovetum of its Latin ending, we'll be left with the typical Georgian toponym Oveti, land of Ovi, or Obi, since in the Spanish language B and V are pronounced the same way. And in Chronicles of Albelda, the city is called exactly Obeto. So it's the Georgian toponym Obeti, land of Obi. Now we look the word up at the Georgian dictionary and fall unconscious, because in Georgian Obi means mold, the same mold that we told you so passionately about in the Asturian Cabrales. Of course it's a land of mold, since Asturias, or more exactly Picos de Europa, is the world center of the mold cheeses and the natural mold of the highest quality, which is penicillium. Now you know the origin of the word Oviedo. In later times, the city, as the capital status dictates, always used to be the epicenters of various Spanish turbulences, such as the notorious Civil War.
The Republicans lost the Civil War and suffered strongly. That's real tragedy, and it evokes real and sincere compassion. But why on earth they set on fire this beautiful Oviedo Cathedral in 1934 and started killing priests, I have no idea.
As for the music, Asturias is the land of gaiteros. Gaita is Asturian and Galician bagpipe, known from the pre-Roman times. In Asturias, the main interpreter named Avia brought this music onto international orbit. After Oviedo, we need to drop in at two Asturian towns located inland, Grado and Pravia. It's because of another local very interesting cheese called Afuega el Pitu. It's made of cow's milk and doesn't swallow very well, which is its typical characteristic. It's better to flush it down with a drink, like cider. Despite this difficulty, Afuega el Pitu is known far away from Asturias. Meanwhile, we turn back to the ocean, to the incredible city of Gijón, which is the capital of Asturias. But before reaching it, we make a stop in its suburb Prendes, which hosts a restaurant with a Michelin star called Casa Gerardo. It's interesting to us for cooking the best fabada, the most trademark Asturian beans dish. The restaurant's chef and owner, Pedro Moran, got its Michelin star for just two simplest dishes, fabada and the dessert arroz con leche, which is rice with milk. That's what we are going to have here. Fabada is a dish quite resembling the Georgian lobio. The big white beans are boiled till it turns into virtually soup, after which the meat compango is added. So we are at Casa Gerardo restaurant, Prendes, Asturias, together with Pedro Moran's son, Marcus. Marcus, could you please tell us a bit about the restaurant's history and your achievements?
Bueno, pues nosotros somos una casa que tiene...
So our house is 135 years old. All the time it belonged to the same family in which I am already the fifth generation. We started with very simple, even elementary things, but soon developed into a serious enterprise, which has a Michelin star. We are acknowledged on the national level and offer the traditional cuisine a little mixed with the vanguard. What's the restaurant's concept?
Nosotros hablamos siempre que hacemos una cocina contemporánea.
That's the concept of a modern cuisine. We don't reject the traditional dishes like fabada and arroz con leche, but we also accept very well the vanguard streams. You can say that in certain sense we offer freedom. How would you define the Asturian cuisine? The Asturian cuisine is very traditional. It has a good price-quality correlation. More attention is paid here to what you see in the plate than to what you see around. There are restaurants that look fancy but have a weak kitchen. Here it's vice versa. You can happen to eat in a restaurant that looks poor, but the kitchen will be ideal. Now it seems that more Ukrainians will be traveling to Spain. What would you recommend to them? People who go to Asturias don't seek sun and beaches. We offer other stuff. It's a big cultural program, a big gastronomic program. Again, a good relation of price to quality. Besides, the human material is great here. The Asturians like to receive guests. It's our strong feature. Well, then we'll be recommending to everyone your truly fantastic dishes. And we'll hope that Ukrainians will visit Asturias more often. Thank you very much and best regards to your famous father. After the wonderful dinner in the wonderful company, the impression from the Asturian capital should be as wonderful. And it was exactly so. The city is one of the most attractive for those who choose Spain as their second motherland. It's where the Asturian slogan Paraíso Natural implements the best. Beautiful mountains that approach the very coast and are covered with magic woods, and the Atlantic Ocean. As in San Sebastian, the city is split in two parts by a cape that protrudes into the sea and hosts the historical center of Gijón. And that's where we'll talk about, don't be surprised, Maradona. When Maradona arrived to Tbilisi in 2010, the Georgian writer Dato Turashvili told him that his surname translates from Georgian as Land of Eternity. Diego, of course, took it as a joke, although Dato knew what he was talking about. The ona ending is a Kartvelian toponymic ending. In particular, one of the Kartvelian nations, the Laz, called their country La Zona. If so, then the root of the surname should be Maradi, which is eternal in Georgian. Hence, Maradona means land of the eternal. We recall this surname in Asturias because its origin is exactly Asturian, the best place in Spain, the natural paradise as they call themselves, an ideal place to call it land of eternity. Maradona. After Gijón, we head in western direction, where along the coastline there are a chain of wonderful towns. The first of them, Cudillero, traditionally makes part of lists of the most attractive Spanish small towns. Sometimes it ranks first on such lists. There is not much to comment here. The town is simply stunning. Once a fisherman village, the memory of which is preserved in the name the local people call themselves, Pixueto, from pish meaning fish, today is almost exclusively a center of tourist attention, which besides is located on the Santiago route. After Cudillero, don't forget to drop in at the Playa del Silencio, the Silence Beach, to take great photos of the local rocks. And then further westward, where the small town of Cadavedo again reveals fantastic and purely Asturian land and seascapes. The special magnetism is added by the orreos, specific structures for grain keeping. Here in Cadavedo you can spend the night in a great family Asturrigal hotel with the windows that face the ocean. In the morning, the road in the same western direction inevitably will lead you to another Asturian and Spanish great pearl, the town named Luarca. Actually, together with Cudillero, Luarca is considered the center of world's attention gravity on the northern coast. Again, no comments are needed, the beauty is obvious. Luarca is the hometown for the famous Alsa bus company, known very well to anyone who likes to travel over the roads of this country. The last Asturian place on the Atlantic coast is Ribadeo, on the river with the same name. The opposite bank is already Galicia. The town is fine, although not as impressive as the previous Asturian diamonds, but its coastline with rocks and lighthouse impresses. In Asturias, we have seen mountains, sea, beaches, big and small super towns. We drank cider and ate Cabrales, but the overall Asturian impression will be incomplete or even wrong without one tiny village. You need to drive inland along the Galician border to Taramundi. The town itself does not represent anything special, you need to get down 4 kilometers more. First to the Museum of Mills in Masonovo, and then to the main destination, the unique museum under the sky called Teixoes. It's hard even to imagine how many centuries have been conserved here. The main thing is to understand that the most ancient and the most authentic Asturias are right here, lost in mountain woods.
As it was said in a wonderful movie, La Mitad del Cielo, Spain is a country of cheeses. let alone Asturias, which is the capital not only of cheeses, but first of all of the blue cheeses. The main Asturian cheese is called Cabrales, and it's not only the best Asturian cheese, but also according to various ratings, it's the best cheese in Spain. Definitely it's going to be the main element of our Asturian product basket. The Cabrales family has its own very precious jewel, which is called Cabrales Teixoes. That's the name of the cave where this cheese is kept. It's very soft because this type of cheeses gets softer with the time, and it costs twice as more expensive because it comes from a mountainous village called Kielve, where there is no road to, and people bring it in the sacks to Cabrales, where the cheese is produced. Besides Cabrales, Asturias has at least two more as beautiful and as magic cheeses, like Gamonedo, which is a little bit firmer than Cabrales, and a total miracle called La Peral, which is a cow cheese with the addition of sheep butter. Of non-blue cheeses, Asturias has Afuegal Pitu, which is produced in the region of Pravia, Grado. People say that the more ripened it gets, the more difficult it is to swallow. If Cabrales is the king of the Asturian cuisine, then fava would be the queen. It's big, long, white beans, which are the main ingredient of the well-known fabada, the main Asturian national dish, like the one cooked, for example, here in Cadavedo, the hotel Asturias by our friends Javi and Maria Jose. Fabada is not possible without pork products like tocino, morcilla, and chorizo. The main Asturian drink would be cider, local Asturian cider, which is more gassy compared to its Basque brother, and the best place to find the best cider obviously would be the capital of the Asturian cider, Villaviciosa. And two typical Asturian desserts, carbañones and quesadillas with nuts.
This is all that we wanted to tell you about Asturias. The next province must be as interesting to you, because it's the great Galicia.